In times of calamity, political distress, social changes, and even personal challenges, now more than ever, the world needs saints. When almost every day we are bombarded with too many, often misleading information, causing too much distraction, confusion, and frustration, we need saints to remind us of a higher calling, that we were meant to think beyond ourselves and rise above our situation. Saints are ordinary people like us, made extraordinary by saying yes to God. They were not born saints, but eventually became saints out of God's graciousness. Despite pains and trials, our saints remain formidable channels that withstood the test of time, willingly gave up themselves to ensure God's love, mercy, and grace reach us. In this year's celebration of the Year of Parishes, we remember 5 remarkable saints who were true instruments of unity and solidarity, born out of faith, hope, and love. 5 friends of Jesus who remind us that the strength of one becomes power when nurtured and harnessed together in a community. Saint Catherine of Siena was born in the 14th century, a troubled period for the Church and throughout the social context of Italy and Europe. When Saint Catherine was 21 years old, she describes an experience she referred to as her mystical marriage to Christ. For her, Christ was like the spouse with whom a relationship of intimacy, communion, and faithfulness exists. He was the best beloved whom she loved above any other good. In her vision, she was told to re-enter public life and to help the poor and sick. She immediately rejoined her family and went to help people in need. She often visited hospitals and homes where the poor and sick were found. As she worked, Saint Catherine was drawn further into the world and eventually began to travel, calling for reform of the Church and for people to confess and to love God totally. When the fame of her holiness spread, she became the protagonist of an intense activity of spiritual guidance for people from every walk of life. Nobles and politicians, artists and ordinary people, consecrated men and women and religious, including Pope Gregory XI, who was living at Avignon in that period and whom she energetically and effectively urged to return to Rome. She also established a monastery for women in 1377 outside of Siena. She is credited with composing over 400 letters, Dialogue of Divine Providence, or Libro de la Divina Dottrina, a masterpiece of spiritual literature in her Epistolario and in the collection of her prayers. These works are so influential that Saint Catherine would later be declared a Doctor of the Church. She is one of the most influential and popular saints in the Church. Every day, God calls us to holiness, and this starts by becoming friends with Jesus. Every day is a chance to be a saint. With Jesus as partner, are you ready to respond today